everyone, and welcome back to the Welsh Lady ASMR. And today, as you can see or hear, is a little different to the other videos I've done. I am attempting a softly spoken video. I thought I'd have a little chat with you guys about thinking outside of the box, and by that I mean thinking alternatively, going against the flow sometimes, because I like to think alternatively quite a lot of the time actually. So I thought that could be the crux of what I am rambling about today. As is the case mostly, I've brought a few books with me to illustrate what I'm going to be talking about. And I suppose I feel quite comfortable talking to you about alternative thinking because I think the ASMR community is quite alternative. I think maybe here in the UK it is less well known, I would say, or less mainstream than it may be elsewhere. That's just my perception. But I know some people think it is weird. We know differently, don't we? Because we find it relaxing, and a lot of people just don't get it. So I guess if you're watching ASMR videos, you already have an alternative viewpoint to a lot of people. And so I thought you would be a good audience for my thoughts on thinking outside the box. And I think I have always thought a little differently. There are occasions when I have run with the herd as well, of course, and I still do. But there were snippets, when I think about it, throughout my life when I have been a little different. I suppose you could say I have always been a searcher, looking for something and finding alternative ways to find it. And I think the earliest example that I can remember anyway was when I was about 8-9 years old. We lived in a terraced house here in South Wales, and behind our house we had a small garden, and then behind that there was a lane, and the other side of the lane there was a scrapyard actually. And next to the scrapyard there was, well, from the outside it looked like a shed, a metal shed made out of, looked like sheets of corrugated iron, and it was black, very shiny, painted sort of shiny black colour. And there wasn't very much activity in this little shed apart from Sundays. It was a chapel. Now, to this day, I'm not entirely sure what denomination, if any, it was. It certainly wasn't Church of England. It wasn't Catholic. I don't think it was Methodist or Baptist. It just seemed to be a little offshoot of people. And during the the nicer days, I'd be in the garden on a Sunday morning, and I always remember it would be, we almost always on a Sunday had a roast dinner, and my mother would be in the house clattering around, and the smell of roast beef assailing my nose, and I probably was chucked out the garden to keep out the way while dinner was being prepared. So I was out the garden anyway, and I can almost hear it now. The people, I could vaguely hear talking in there, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, would be this collective singing, hymns. Weren't hymns that I knew that we sang in school, but this singing voices, beautifully singing, but no musical accompaniment. There was no piano, there was no organ. And then the singing would stop and it would all go very quiet. And then a little bit later, the singing would start up again. And I must have been very intrigued, because I remember asking my mother if I could go in to the church to see what was going on in there. I must have been very nosy. But my mother obviously agreed. And I remember one day she took me by the hand, took me to the door of the church, and as they were all quite elderly, as I remember, they were going in. She called over somebody who looked obviously like they were in charge, and said, "Oh, my daughter would like to join you. Is that okay?" And they were delighted. They, as I say, the congregation was mainly very elderly people, and there was this 8-year-old girl in amongst them. I was very much taken under their wing, and it was a very strange church, not like any other. I'd been to family weddings, and I'd been to Sunday school at the local Church of England church, but I'd never been in a service like this, because there was no order. It seemed everybody there had an equal voice to speak whenever they felt like it, and there were lots of periods of just silence, and I would sit there and I would look around, and then all of a sudden somebody would stand up and speak things I didn't really understand. They were reading from a Bible, and then suddenly somebody would get up and announce a hymn, and everyone would stand up and sing, and really quite extraordinary. Anyway, I went back. I'm not sure how long I would go to these services. I think at some point I got bored, didn't go again. But there you go. That was one of my very early experiences of just wanting to be amongst these people who were, to me, quite different from anything else I had heard before. And I think this theme of searching has carried on throughout my life. So that childhood experience of this church, chapel, the bottom of my garden, I don't know whether that's why, but I just have had the freedom to think a lot about what I believe, what I don't believe, and what I'm not sure of. And don't get me wrong, I'm still not sure what I believe, what I don't believe, but it's given me a capacity to have space to think about these questions, like, who are we as humans? Why are we here? Is this it? Why is there so much suffering and happiness in this world? What can we do about it? Because let's be honest, sometimes we feel very powerless to do anything, especially now. There are some very strange things going on in the world. And I'm not going to attempt to answer those questions here. I just wanted to, I suppose, put out there to you guys the idea that it's okay to not know the answers, but it's okay to be searching, as I still am searching. But I have over the years gathered a number of books on this subject, and there are many others that I have given away. I'm the type of person who, once I get an idea, I like to research it. So I've had a number of books on Christianity, other spiritualism. I still buy those books now. I love reading books with all sorts of ideas in them. And then I give those books away. So I don't have many left on my bookshelf, but I've gone down to my bookshelf and I brought up some of the books that I have there now that have got me thinking. And I wonder if any of you have got similarly alternative books, ideas, philosophies that you have. Maybe you've even got some of the ones I've got here. I have got a whole lot more of these type of books on my Kindle. A little bit of tapping. Here's my Kindle. I know I have shown you this before. It's so convenient. You can have thousands of books here and it takes up a lot less space in the house. But I could talk for days about all the books on my Kindle. I thought make things a little simpler for this tiny little video. I brought a few that, as I say, I have left on my bookshelf. Now, the first one I'm going to show you is quite old and wasn't originally mine. So the mysterious thing is this copy turned up in my parents' house after my dad died. My dad died 10 years ago, and a few years later my mother gave me this book and said that my dad had always had this on him. Now, I don't remember ever seeing it before in my life. My dad never mentioned it. My dad had a quiet faith. He'd been brought up in a Methodist family, or Welsh chapel. Had a quiet faith. But this appeared out of nowhere. And I have since read it. But the weird thing is, about a few years before this book turned up in my life, I had downloaded an app on my phone. I was working in sales at the time and loved reading personal development books, you know, the Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, you know, that type of book. And I read these avidly. I loved reading these. And around about the same time, I'd come across an app on my phone. I paid a few pounds for it, I think. And it contained all of these classic books on New Thought, and As a Man Thinketh by James Allen is on this app. I still have the app now. And Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, another book. There are probably about 30 books on this app. Some very old, like 1920s, 1930s, as this one is of the same era. And they all have a similar sort of theme. It's a theme that has come and gone, I suppose, with fashion. And it's the new thought thing. And these days we talk about manifesting, positive affirmations. And that was really the principle in this book, is that thoughts are powerful. So mind your thinking, I suppose. And I must admit, I love reading that type of book. I have faith in positive affirmations myself and managing thoughts, because thoughts become things. I wholeheartedly believe in that. So, yeah, it was quite strange to be given this book that was with my father's possessions when I had no idea. I still don't know where my father got this book from, or why he had it, or what he thought of it, indeed. Now, a few years ago, one thing leads to another, doesn't it? Once you start reading one book or you look at one website, it tends to spark off different ideas, and then you go down a rabbit hole. I have no idea where the author of this book came from in my life. I don't know what I was looking at. It was something of this new thought, and I came across this guy. His name's Thomas Campbell. This is the book I bought. Rather unappealing cover, the big foot on it, but it's called My Big Toe, and the toe is abbreviations for theory of everything. So this tome, look at the size of it, is his thoughts on some of these unanswerable questions: who we are, why we're here, what we're supposed to do when we are here. Now, I will admit, I've read a lot of it, but I have skipped a bit as well. I've got the gist of it. This Thomas Campbell also runs a lot of online stuff. He does meetups. I would love to go and see him speak, actually. I think a very charismatic guy. He's got YouTube videos as well. But I'll read you a little bit from the back so you get the idea of what this is. So, My Big Toe, written by a nuclear physicist in the language of contemporary Western culture, unifies science and philosophy, physics and metaphysics, mind and matter, purpose and meaning, the normal and the paranormal. The entirety of human experience, mind, body and spirit, including both our objective and subjective worlds, is brought together under one seamless scientific understanding. Well, that is really just a brief little bit about it. He speaks in a language of computer programming. It is an interesting read, but it is quite a heavy read. But I bought it on Amazon a number of years ago, as I say, and I do dip into it now and again, because sometimes even things I read now, I think there was something in this book, similar idea, and I dip in, which is why I have it near my desk at this very moment. So, yeah, I would be very surprised if anyone watched watching this video has read this book, but if you have, do put a comment below. It would be wonderful to speak to someone who has digested this. Let me know what you think of it as well. I have one other book to show you, which isn't religious or spiritual-ish. Maybe it is a little spiritual, but it's again a book that I read a number of years ago, written by two guys, and I think this book has changed me, and it's called Everything That Remains, and the authors are Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus. Now, you may not have heard of them, but I discovered these guys on Facebook, and on Facebook they're known as the Minimalists, and I subscribed to their website, and I then got the emails, the regular emails, and I was fascinated by their philosophy. And in a nutshell, these guys had learned that they'd had very successful, well-paid jobs, but they still weren't happy, and they kind of got together, and one of the guys just moved flats or apartments. There from America, and he packed all his possessions up, moved into his new apartment, and realised that he was more at peace when he hadn't unpacked and he didn't have all this stuff around him. So these guys are, as the name suggests, the minimalists, really promote the idea of having less stuff. A couple of years ago, I was at the festival in Portmeirion in Wales called Festival Number 6, and it was a music festival, normal thing, but they also had debating rooms and people with, again, alternative viewpoints. And I went to one of the lectures, and it was James Wallman. Now, James Wallman has written quite a well-known book called Stuffication on the same principle, and we went to hear him speak, and it was, again, very enlightening. And it was about, you can cram your house full of technology, possessions, but ultimately possessions start owning you because they need looking after, they need tidying, they need cleaning, and yeah, it can be very freeing to get rid of stuff. And James Wallman was talking about, instead of buying things, spend money on experiences like travel, meals, food, sharing experiences with friends and family. And he called that experientialism. And that's something Richard and myself talk about quite a lot. It's not being mean with money when it is sharing experiences with your loved ones, your family, because that is something that will never go. You'll have those memories, whereas stuff, it just ends up cluttering your life. And I very much embraced this idea. As I said, I subscribed to the Minimalists. I read all of their emails, and I'm like, yeah, this is me. And probably 6 years ago or so, I realised my house was full of every cupboard, the loft, garage, full of stuff. And we decided to have a good clear out, and all I can say is that process was cathartic. lethargic in the extreme. You realise what you're holding on to, for it may come in handy. Well, we had a good clear out. We've moved house a few times since, and each house move is another opportunity of getting rid of things. Certainly get rid of broken things. I think it is quite bad energy to have things around that are scruffy or broken. And yeah, I got rid of so many clothes in my wardrobe, things that one day I'm going to slim into these clothes. And yeah, I just got rid, gave them to charity, sold some of them. And you probably will notice when I make videos now, I'm usually in one of a handful of outfits, because I really don't even now have many clothes at all. And I find it freeing to get up and I have outfits if we're going somewhere nice, but I don't have huge amounts of clothes to manage and wash and iron. Footwear, I do have a few pairs, different shoes for different occasions, but again, I love having wardrobes that are clear and space. And as you can probably see behind me, my house is reasonably clear of clutter. There are pockets here and there, and that's why my bookcase is fairly trimmed. I do love books and I love seeing books, but again, I find it more manageable to just keep a few around me rather than every book I've ever read. I have waffled on an awful lot this afternoon. I think I've probably lost a lot of you on the way, but it was intended to be a ramble. I sure have rambled, but I hope that some of you have found the ramble either relaxing or thought-provoking. Either way, let me know in the comments, and I will be back again, possibly with another softly spoken. And as I said on the last video, I am plucking up the courage to be doing a live very soon. I don't quite know what I'll do on the live, but I'm sure it'll all work itself out. But meanwhile, I hope you all have a wonderful Easter, and I hope the weather's great where you are. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.